Come with me on this absolutely glorious Monday morning, and we're going to be getting involved in a little vauxhall Corsa 1.4 LDD, and we're going to be replacing the timing chain on it. First thing we need to do is disconnect the battery. Now the battery is disconnected, we've removed the air box, we need to remove the rocker cover and the coil pack with T30s, and then we can get the rocker cover off with some E10s. Now we've removed the rocker cover, we need to remove various component plugs. Just back your coolant cap off, because we need to be going down the side of the engine. Now to do that, we've got to drain the coolant out of it, and we've also got to remove the aircon pump and the alternator, and we can do all that from underneath. So let's get the car in the air. Once we've got the vehicle half raised now, what we can do is remove the inner wheel arch so we can gain access to the engine itself. We need to remove the alternator belt, slacken the tension off and put a little pin in there, and it'll help you when you install it later. Now we can move around to the alternator with some E14s, and we can get the power steering, air conditioning pump off at the same time. Now we've got the AC pump out of the way and the alternator out of the way. We're just draining the water out of the radiator, as you can see, and we're going to move around now to this T55, and we're going to remove it because that's where you're going to be putting your crank locking pin. Once you've finished underneath the vehicle, drop it back down, get yourself a jack. We're going to put it underneath the sump with a block of wood like so, and then we can move around to this engine mount. We've got E18s and E16s, and that now, I'll just pull out of the way, keep all the bolts into it and keep it safe. Now we've got all the engine mounts off, we need to get this engine timed up correctly. To do this, remove cylinder 1 spark plug, get yourself a long pick, put it down the bore like so, and wind that engine over until that pick right up to the top. Wind it over like so, and that pick now will come up, and when that gets at top dead, as high as it'll reach, like so, you can get your timing pin in the bottom. Once we've got the crankshaft locked up, we need to just double check the timing on the camshafts. Now what I like to do with these pickup rings, I just like to mark them because there is different ways that they will go. We don't want to get it wrong. And then we're just going to check and see how far the timing out is on it, because it has got a cam crank correlation. Now I have adjusted the camshaft so the tool fits. You can now see how slack that chain is, and that is your cam crank correlation. We need to now move around to the lock and the camshafts. There's a little plate similar to the Fords, and they go in the back. What you might need to do is get yourself a 22mm spanner on the camshaft itself and just wiggle it in, and that'll just slot in lovely like so. Right, now let's concentrate on getting the side of the engine off. Now a lot of you have probably done this before, and what I'd like to do is keep an old gasket or a brand new gasket out of a kit that's probably never been used. And each bolt, a lot of these bolts, they are different lengths, so you need to make sure that they go back in the correct holes. What I do, as I take one out, I put one in, and then that way they're not getting messed up. Let's get the side cover off. Once you've removed all the timing cover now, you can see, well, it's a little bit worse for wear. We have got the bottom of the guide has snapped, and it's fallen into the sump. I was not planning on taking the sump off, but we are going to have to. Anyway, let's go now and make a start on removing this timing chain. Now let's get the tension off this chain. You can push it back with your thumb. If you can't push it back with your thumb, just get yourself a little flathead screwdriver, and you want to get this little pin, slide it in, and that is beautiful. We can get our E10 now. Like so. There's some T30s on the guides now. Remove them. Like so. Go straight in the bin. And we can pull this chain off. There you go, that's a broken piece off. You should be able to just pull this chain out and get it removed, like so. because I need to remove the sump on this vehicle now, because the guide's dropped into the sump, we need to just support the engine with a block of wood just underneath the manifold. It's going to be perfect. We can go ahead now, remove the centre exhaust, this cross brace here, and then we can make a start on getting that sump off. Once we've removed the sump, you can see the condition that it is in. Look at all these plastic, well, the plastic guide that's broken up. Now, this car, when it was brought to us, it was smoking. It had quite a lot of oil in it, probably about 8 to 9 litres, possibly 10 litres, because it was way over full. And I think what's happening, the customer's topping the oil up because the pressure light's coming on. As you can see, the oil pickup is blocked solid. Now what I've done, as you can see, all these bits now, they have fallen out. I got the airline and blown through the oil pickup, and all this plastic is falling out the bottom. Just need to get everything now nice and clean. And that is the block all nice and cleaned up, and how I've done it is just a wire brush on the end of a drill and a little bit of brake and clutch cleaner. We've also cleaned the side of the engine as well, and there you go, that is the timing cover nice and clean, and the sump nice and clean with the oil pickup spotless. Now let's make a start putting the chain on. And the first thing you want to do is slacken the camshaft pulleys off with a 24 and a 22mm spanner holding the camshaft. Slacken that pulley off so they're nice and spinneroonian. And then we have got, as you can see, we've got new guides, new gasket, chain, crankshaft seal, and a tensioner and various little seals. Anyway, let's get cracking. Now we've replaced the chain, we're going to leave these cam pulleys slack until we put the timing cover on. These guides here, 8 Newton meters. The one guide on the left is 20 Newton meters, and the tensioner itself is at 8 Newton meters. But you need to swap the locking pins for the tensioner because it won't fit through the timing cover. So yeah, let's get this timing cover on. Now at some point when we've been doing these chains, we've all done it. Put the gasket on first. The amount of times that I've done all that and I haven't put the gasket on. So make sure you put the gasket on first. Now once that timing cover is in and all torqued up to spec, we need to put the sump on, but before we do, just in the corners here, between the timing cover and the block itself, put a little bit of sealant, and that'll help it between the gaps, because sometimes it can leak. And while you've been doing that, put your sealant on the sump and let it have a little bit of a skin on it for about 5-10 minutes, and then we can get it on and torqued up. And that's the sump all back on. If you've done it right with your sealant, you should have a little bead running nicely all the way around your sump on the outside, you know, when it squashes up. I can't really do much more now to it because it's getting close to clocking off time. I'm going to leave all this sealant now, go dry overnight, and we'll get it finished off tomorrow. But anyway, for now, let's get it sent. Right, let's get back to this little vauxhall Corsa with the timing chain that had stretched. We've put the crankshaft pulley back on it. We've also put a new crankshaft oil seal. Now let's get the engine timed up. We've still got the crankshaft pin in there, and we're going to get these camshafts lined up. Now think back to the beginning of the video where I said I needed to mark these little camshaft pickup rings. Now if you can see that gap there? We've also got the same gap there. Now the reason why I marked it was because we don't want to get them mixed up, and that's the same there. See that mark there? And there's one there. So that's why I put that little bit of Tipex on it. And you're going to need now this tool, which locks in place. And when you fit them, make sure that you put your bolts and make sure that they're nice and tight. Now once you've fitted the centre holding disc tool to the camshaft, you need to jump round now, and there's also another tool which you need to put down, and it bolts to the cylinder head and it holds the camshaft. You know, when you're tightening it up, it's not twisting the chain and taking the tension off the chain. So all we need to do now is pull that pin out, and you should see the tensioner on the chain jumping back up, and that is lovely and tight. Now we've got the chain nice and tight, we need to just lock the tool off, and what you're going to do, what I do anyway, is put your finger down the back, lift it up so it's tight against the camshaft pulley, and then get your 5mm, make sure it's nice and tight, like so. And then we can jump around now, get your torque wrench, 50 Newton meters, 22mm on the camshaft, and then we can tighten this bolt up perfectly. And then once we've done 50 Newton meters, we've got to go 60 degrees in on both of them. Perfect. And then once everything then is now nicely timed up, make sure you remove all your tools and put them back in your box so you know they're out of the engine. Then we can jump on the crank pulley now, and we can turn it over 2 turns and make sure I have put some little lines on the timing cover and on the camshaft. What we're going to do, give it a big turn over twice and make sure that everything is lining back up perfectly and the engine is not locking up. If it locks up, you know you've done it wrong. And there's my marks that are coming back around now. Perfect there, perfect there, perfect there, and on the crank. Right, let's get this water pump on it. Well, I got a little bit carried away. You've all seen a water pump being fitted many a time to these engines. We built it back up, we've got it now on the engine mount, but before we put the rocker cover back on, as you notice, I took the cylinder 1 spark plug out. I don't know if you can see, but there's absolutely nothing left on them plugs, and they are genuine. So we're going to be checking some brand new NGK plugs in it. Once we've got it all put back together, we've got some fresh coolant in it, we put some nice clean oil in it, and what we're going to do before we give it a big starter rooney, we're just going to leave the coil pack unplugged so it doesn't start, and we're going to wind it over and get that oil pressure up. Now we've got the coil pack plugged back in, let's get on the key and give it a big start. Absolutely perfect. And there you go, now we've got the engine up and running. We're just going to get up to temperature, make sure that the cooling fans are coming in, the temperature is getting nice and hot. The only thing I can fault is that rattling. I've had this car now running for about 20 minutes, half an hour, and just made sure now that everything is nice and dry. All this is what was off from cleaning. It is bone dry around the back here. I can't really take it far for a test drive because there's no fuel in it whatsoever, and I am not putting fuel in a customer's car, not a chance. And there we have it, that car now is all built back up and it's back on the floor. Now because I can't go very far in it, I'm having to rely on live data which is accurate to make sure that this engine and this job is perfect. As you can see now, we've got the engine running, temperature's up, the desired intake and exhaust camshaft, and they are absolutely flawless. Anyway, that is as much as I can do, and that car now is running perfect. I'm going to ask the customer to come back in about a week's time just to make sure we haven't got any leaks or anything. Anyway, for now, let's get it sent.